So welcome, Gabe, multiple-time kickboxing world champion, of course, former Glory champion, current Bellator kickboxing champion. How are you?
I'm fantastic. A little bit disappointed with how slow things are moving right now, but I guess that's everybody in the fight world, unless you're fortunate enough to be with one of the promotions that's pumping out the shows like UFC. But everybody else is kind of waiting.
Yeah, we see that you announced that you're a free agent. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, Bellator has stopped doing their kickboxing. They're not going to Europe for the next little while. So yeah, it's essentially halted all the kickboxing and Europe shows. So I was left with the choice. Do I want to focus on MMA and take a dramatic pay cut? Because let's be honest, I'm not an MMA expert and I don't deserve to be paid the way I was being paid in kickboxing. Or should I find another promotion, possibly return to kickboxing and focus maybe with one or Glory, or I don't know what the path is going to be.
Well, you're still a young man. You still have years ahead of you. So hopefully you'll get an offer very soon.
I don't know. I'm 36.
We need to see you back, basically.
I turned 36 the other day, so I'm not that young anymore.
36?
36, yeah.
Wow. The first time I actually saw you fight was actually against Lertzela at the K1.
Yes.
That's the first time I met you, I think, too. But
that was, yeah. And I already knew who you were. I already knew who you and Vinny were from all your announcing.
But I just remember distinctly thinking, the K1 promoters have brought in a guy here. I didn't know much about you. And they brought a guy in here to make Lertzer look good, That's what the whole concept was, I think, anyway. Yeah. And we came over, and I remember a couple of guys saying, listen, this Gabe kid, he doesn't look like he can fight, but boy, can he. So I was like, great. And I started to have a little look the day before in the hotel, had a little look on your background. I was like, wow, this kid's got some hands. So anyway, we started talking about this kid's got hands. And then I'm going to be honest, you beat the fuck out of him. You can swear on here, Gabe. It's fine. But just the clinic you put on, especially with your hands. And ever since then, I've been a fan. Vinny's been a fan, and people around the world have been fans. For me, anyway, that's for when I started to really become a fan of you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I one other avenue that I really want to focus on over the next couple of years, if I can't get something with one happening, or even if I can, I really want to fight Saenchai. I know he's a different fighter than Lertzela. They're both Thai. They're both very evasive, so they have some similarities. But Saenchai is definitely somebody that, like anybody's beatable. I think people get too much in their head and they start going, oh, he's the GOAT, he's a legend, and there's no way he can be beaten. And people lose the fight before they step in the ring. And I just know that won't happen with me. So I'd like a shot. I'd like to make it happen.
Kickboxing or Muay Thai, though?
It would have to be Muay Thai. He won't take a kickboxing fight. I've never done a Muay Thai fight, but in all fairness, Saenchai, he's not a massive elbow guy. He doesn't step in and bomb those. And that's the only thing from Muay Thai where I've ever been like, I don't really know if I want to get elbowed in the face a whole lot. It just brings a new brutality to the level of the sport, which is awesome, but it's just something I haven't been interested in. And I love clenching and throws, and he's one of the best, but I'd have to come in with the right game plan.
So there you hear it. Gabriel Varga wants Saenchai. All right. So what we're going to do is go to our fans. So we actually put out an Instagram 2 days ago, and we have had an abundance of questions. So what I've done is I've picked 10 random ones, to be honest with you. I'll say their names as well. Perfect. And just give us, obviously, you're honest, which you are anyway, your honest answers. So we'll start with the first one. And this is from Michael Fitzpatrick, who's going to be challenging for the WBC belt soon.
Oh, great.
What's the biggest problem with fighters today?
Biggest problem with fighters? Oh, boy.
It's a hard one.
That is a hard one. I'm going to go out on the limb and say a lot of people don't want to fight the best, and they're looking for an easy way to the top. Now, this isn't for everybody, but we see it a lot in boxing. I think that's why boxing is struggling a little bit more. UFC generally makes everybody fight everybody. But if you just, like I had to do when they gave me Lertzela, I just went, give me anybody. If I want to climb, unless you have all the building blocks in place and you have the perfect promoter, the perfect trainer, this and that, and you can go step by step. If you want to get to the top, take any fights and you'll get there. If you can beat people, you'll get there much quicker.
All right. Question 2 from Sean Newbury. How important is road work at a high amateur or professional level in Muay Thai or kickboxing?
You're going to get a lot of different opinions on that. Somebody like Joseph Valtellini will say it's not important whatsoever. I you'd have to cut my leg off to stop me from doing my road work for a fight. It is one of the most important things. It's the most important thing to me out of anything of my training camp is cardio. I know a lot of people would argue with that and say you're timing or this or that. But for me, I figured nothing else is going to work if my cardio is not on point, and that all comes from road work for me. I run 5 days a week. Every run is under 5 kilometers. So we're talking fast, everything sprints, or 5 kilometers as quick as possible. I don't like long 10K runs. Yeah, for me, very important.
All right. Question 3 from Diana Keck. Who is your biggest inspiration?
Oh, it would be the K1 Max champions. It's been like that ever since I started watching the sport. Bocao, Masato, Albert Kraus, and Andy Sauer. Those guys were the ones right from the beginning that inspired me to go after the belts behind me. And I've watched all their videos and developed my style around watching them and learned so much from them. Those are the guys.
Okay. From Johnson Garzon. When did you realize you could become a world champion?
After I won my world titles. It's a step-by-step thing for me. I didn't know ahead of time. I didn't go, oh, I'm going to be a world champion my first fight out. I just went, I want to have a fight. And then I went, I want to win a Canadian amateur title. And I did that. And I said, oh, let's do one more step, which eventually led to an amateur world title. And, you know, even when I was fighting for the glory belt against Mosab Amrani, I would go in confident, of course, but I didn't even know if I was going to win. I just went, I'm going to go and give it my all. And I'm confident, but yeah, I didn't win it and went like, oh yeah, it was a given. I had doubts.
All right. This is from Stephen Palumbo. Do you find it harder to spar or fight southpaws?
Ooh. I think spar. I think sparring because I get a little bit more in my head about the angles I should take and what I should be doing. Whereas most of the time, southpaws are not as effective as they can be. There are some southpaws who take advantage of it and they're very, very good. A lot of times southpaws just square off and they just fight like a normal fighter. And then it changes nothing and you can just get away with fighting your normal fight. So when I spar, I think about it too much. And I think a lot of people do that as well.
Okay. From Pablo Punta Carlos. I've read that you're a classically trained pianist. Do you find there's any influence from one art to the other?
I mean, they're entirely different, but there is a misconception with fighting that, you know, people just get in there just banging and they're just fighters and they're not thinking and it's just brutality. And there's a definite art, and the guys who are the best in the world are utilizing their brains, like Giorgio Petrosian, Mayweather. They're thinking such a higher level than everybody else. And you're doing that when you're playing the piano. So I guess there is some crossover that would be helpful.
All right. Question 7 from Aaron Wilson. Who is the most talented Canadian fighter you've ever seen? And I suppose you could talk about boxing with this as well as Thai boxing and kickboxing, MMA, I suppose you could include in that.
Yes, that's a good question. I generally judge how good somebody is by how dominant they've been in their career. And George St Pierre is one of the few guys who's been very, very dominant. I know there's many other fighters from previous decades, but I honestly don't really know too much about them. There's Jean-Yves Theriault, and we have some very good fighters like Joseph Valtellini and Simon Marcus, but I don't think myself, Josh Johnsey, but none of them really hold a candle to GSP and how dominant he was. So yeah, I would say him.
Okay. Question 8, Santos Vasquez. How can I improve my fight IQ?
That's it. Yeah.
My fight IQ.
Yeah, I've done a YouTube video on that before, and I said, watch fights. Watch fights and analyze them, and don't just watch them as, you know, a casual viewer where you're just like, oh, I just want to see somebody get hurt. Every time somebody makes a step, every time somebody throws a punch, analyze it, play out one side of the fight like you're in that person's shoes. And what would I do? And every time I watch a fight, I feel like I'm constantly increasing my fight IQ just by viewing.
All right. Question 9 from Umid Obesta. How does fighting at kickboxing in Bellator compare to Glory?
That's a good one. It was not, I can be very honest with that. It did not have the best fighters in the world. Whereas when I was with Glory, I'm going, okay, if I win, I'm number one. That's what I felt. I was actually number one. When I had the Bellator belt out for the last couple of years, I go, okay, you know what? I'm not number one. And that's just the reality. They didn't bring in the best guys. They were good guys within the countries I was fighting, the best in Italy, the best in Hungary, Kevin Ross, and one of the best in America. But they didn't have people from all the countries. So it lacked that. But the kickboxing that they did were big stadiums. It was very exciting to be there because Glory was doing smaller shows. They didn't have the big crowds. So the electricity at the Bellator events, even though they didn't mean as much in world rankings, it was very exciting.
All right. And last question from Hassan Osni. Who would you say is the best pound for pound kickboxer or Muay Thai fighter presently?
Giorgio Petrosian. No question. I've done a YouTube video on that as well. And Muay Thai, kickboxing, anything. I think he's the one guy that is just the next level, kind of like the Wayne Gretzky, but the Floyd Mayweather or whatever. I just think he's somebody that I've tried to study and tried to utilize techniques he uses and try to be more like him. And he's like a puzzle, the way that he can pull things off. And yeah, I would say for him, if you want to study somebody and try and improve and take even minute pieces of his skill set, he's the guy to look at.
All right. Thank you very much, Gabriel, for your honest answers as always. And to follow you on all the platforms.
Gabriel Varga official, pretty much for all of them.
And you've got a YouTube channel as well.
Yes, I do.
I've watched those. They're very interesting as well. Different too. You've gone at a different angle with those YouTube channels.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to try and do. Not how do you throw a jab or how do you knock somebody out, but talking about the conversations which are uncomfortable, like
your girlfriend.
Yeah, how do you train with your girlfriend? Explaining to people that before the fight, when you're warm up, you're going to be very tired. Nobody explains that to you. Pre-fight nerves and fatigue will make you feel terrible in your warm up. Maybe especially early on. I feel a little better now, but I still get it. So just all these subjects that are sort of taboo and people don't want to seem to address, even coaches. I've never had coaches tell me these things. So just passing on information that might help people improve their chance of winning a fight.
That's great. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. I know it's precious and hope everything's good. And hopefully we get to see you fight soon.
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem at all. Thank you very much, Gabe.